So my man, Denzel, right? Right. Virgo ascendant, right? At Virgo ascendant in the D1, right? And I never pegged Denzel for Virgo, but it's interesting. A lot of times, they kind of he's great on, like, as far as the camera, and he makes himself present when not when needed, but he's not like the person that's out in the limelight all the time. He
Right.
really isn't. He's kind of quiet, not quiet, but I'm not gonna say shy. But the Virgos, their 12th house is Leo, right? There's an internal side to them. They shine on the inside. They shine in behind closed doors. They like to be, express their kind of boldness and prowess, right, in internal matters. It's kind of Virgos are known for being, shy to some degree. He's not shy because he definitely has stage presence and camera presence, but at the same time, he's just not out there. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of stars are out there, like, Will Smith, he's out there, right? All these others, there's a lot of stars. Eddie Murphy, he's out there. But Denzel, you got to figure Denzel out. You kind of look inside. You got to go find stuff about Denzel. You know what I mean? It doesn't fall in your lap. And that Virgo is just that, definitely in the sense of being a master of what he does. He is a When he goes to work, he goes to work. But he likes to help people, and Virgos love to help. They're helpers. They're natural helpers. He wants to be of service. He wants to help. He wants to assist people. So this is, and he plays the good guy role. When he played a bad guy role, he did play it. I'm not going to take away from that, but he's the good guy. Denzel movie coming out. Okay, you know what type of good guy is he gonna be? Right.
Right. Well, I mean, he's done Frank Lucas, um,
Frank Lucas was a good guy.
sort of.
He was a
In a
good
way,
bad guy. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
you love Frank Lucas. He made you love Frank Lucas, even though he was a snitch in the sense of the street world. He
right,
made you love Frank Lucas. Frank Lucas was trying to, I mean, the way he portrayed him. Now, say someone else had portrayed him, we might get a different picture of Frank, right? But the way Denzel rocked it, he was a cool dude. He just
he's a businessman.
businessman. Yeah, he wasn't a villain. I mean, he went and shot the dude in the forehead to make a statement, but he just asked for. I mean, it doesn't. He didn't come off as a villain, is what I'm saying, right? With Frank
Right,
Lucas, although Frank Lucas was one of the biggest dope dealers, of his era.
right,
I mean, he pushed poison, right? It is what it is. I'm not saying. I'm just saying facts, right?
right,
So, but Denzel's Virgo ascendant, right, is one that shows that he's very a perfectionist about what he does, right? And perfectionism, is a hallmark that literally you don't want to make mistakes. There's no such thing as perfect in this on this planet, but there's a process of perfecting, and Denzel definitely embodies that on screen, and I would even say off screen as well, right? The ascendant Lord is in the fourth house, conjunct Sun and Mercury, right? So it's a powerful yoga there, Buddhiyati yoga, and that's very common because Mercury is never more than 28 degrees from the sun anyway. But it
right,
is in the fourth house, right? And it does create a very strong propensity to be close to his natural upbringing, his mother, and his homeland, right? His native area. So, it just kind of makes a well rounded disposition to some degree. But the moon is in the fifth house, again, a spiritual house, right? That moon's Lord is exalted, even further strengthening that spiritual disposition, right? Jupiter isn't, he's got a Gajrakasara yoga directly from the moon in the 11th. And that's a very powerful Gajrakasara yoga. Very powerful.
right,
Very powerful because it rules the seventh and the 10th house. I mean, excuse me, the fourth and the seventh house, which is extremely, that's a very, because not every Gajrakasara yoga is like that. And just because you have Jupiter aspecting the moon doesn't mean it's the classic Gajrakasara yoga. It has to be qualified with planets that are placed well. Because sometimes it can make you too grandiose, and too boisterous, and too large for your own good, which then can cancel that particular Gajrakasari and make you into something else. So Gajrakasari has to be qualified, and it is very well qualified. Moon rules the 11th house, and it's being aspected from Jupiter by Jupiter from the 11th. Very powerful, right? So overall, good guy, right? Moon is the mind, right? His mental status is very well structured, very well disciplined, and very harnessed in on doing things in an appropriate manner. Not to say he doesn't have things that we all have our challenges. I don't want people to think I'm painting as some perfect person. We don't know because a lot of things haven't just come out, but he might have things that may surface later, like Bill Cosby. People knew, right, what Bill was doing, but things came out later. But again, just to say, I don't know personally what he's got going on in his backyard, but I can see from where I'm sitting, there's not a lot of scandal around him.
Well, I mean, it's not whatever it was. It doesn't appear that it's something that's defining. You understand what I'm saying? Like,
Exactly.
it's the same, conditionings and stuff that everybody roll through, but it's not something that is a bigger deal enough to put a stain on them or
It's staying
anything
on his
like
name.
that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm. There's nothing that no smut. There's
Hmm.
nothing that yeah, that brother, he did his woman wrong and got none of that.
Yeah.
Um. So interestingly enough, let's dive in. His Atma Karaka, right? Excuse me. It's Saturn. Mm. Now Saturn Atma Karaka is very very interesting, right? Because it makes you face things, right? But it's exalted, so he doesn't have a challenge holding on to, you know, living out certain tenets. It does rule his fifth and his sixth house, which is for Virgo ascendant. It's kind of a mixture, right? It's 50-50 with Saturn. But the Saturn in being exalted is more of a 70-30, right? Because it has a very prominent position in where it's placed. So he does hold on to Saturn as an Amakaraka makes you become a lot more disciplined, right? And it makes you if it's damaged, you have to face a lot of challenging issues, patience, long suffering, right? Proper planning, right? Taking losses. But if it's exalted, then you have the ability to utilize the right timing, right? Being at the right place at the what? Right time. Most people don't know he got his start primarily from knowing the right people, but also being at the what? Right place at the right time. Allowing life to lead you in a way that humbles you, humility, right? He's not an arrogant person by the least, right? He's very humble, and he knows, right? I mean, he knows, but he's not out there, putting himself out there as the man, but he knows he's the man when it comes to acting, and of course being a lady. The what the ladies like, I don't know if they like it now, but when I grew up, Denzel was every yeah, Denzel, right? I can't do it, whatever, but you know this is Saturn as the Amakaraka. It teaches you the humility. It teaches you to play your part and play it well, to be a cog in the machine, but be the best cog you can, and then you stand out on your own. So this
Right.
is what it teaches. But in the light of the chart of the D9, the spiritual path, it's in the what? It's in the ascendant.
Right.
So he himself identifies with living a spiritual, disciplined, frugal life. Not frugal in the sense of being cost effective, but frugal as far as being uh, um, um, boisterous or overly confident. He's naturally humble in his spiritual approach. I know he's a Christian. I know we were talking about it behind camera. We were talking about, I think, was he, you know, a pastor, but he was on TD Jakes, and TD Jakes. I'm just saying what's said. I'm not saying that I agree or disagree. He called him pastor. He
Mm.
called Denzel pastor. And Denzel, I think, made a statement about the Will Smith incident at the Oscars, where he said they prayed for Will Smith at the Oscars. That's what their response was. So that's something that would someone that would do that with this Saturn in the ascendant, as far as the Atma Karaka, and it's in a very now it's not in the best position because it is with Mars, but the Moon does hold fast, right? That the Moon is exalted, so it kind of stabilizes anything that could go wrong on the other side with Mars, right? Right. So that at least gives us some context that his identity with his spiritual path is very strong. Right?
Right.
It holds weight in his life. He's not just out here doing things willy nilly, right? So, and sidebar, Kenti, I don't know if you're saying origins of sacred texts, Rig Veda, etc., is Saba originally named by Strabo as Moreau. I don't know what that means, but if you could qualify it in the chat, I'd appreciate it. And I can elaborate on what you say, right? But nonetheless, the ascendant lord of the Swampsha is Cancer in the third, right? It's in the third house, right? And that exchanges with Moon. So he has a very, in the third house again, is one's efforts towards living out your spiritual creed or living out a spiritual life or following a dharmic path or following a spiritual outlook. He does that. And he pushes it, right? He pushes himself in it. He espouses it. He said, hey, we prayed for him, and for Christian, that's their mantra. I like to see what other name there is for mantra out there, since that might be a new name for what. Anyway, he's prayer is mantra, right, in the West. So he, said something over will to try to, put some type of protection mantra, right, over the individual. So strongly connected to spiritual growth, right? Um, strongly, right? Devoted to trying to live a lifestyle that holds fast to some tenets. Saturn is the law, right? Jupiter is purpose in the sense, or not to say purpose, but it's the sense of understanding and it's intelligence, right? But Saturn is the law, right? I know in certain teachings, Jupiter is the law as well, but Saturn is really the law. It's the one that makes you follow the law. It's like, look, if you don't follow it, there's grave consequences. And he does follow it, internally, just by proximity of who he is. That's what Saturn does as an Atma Kraka in a very strong sign with an exalted planet, right? Despite it being conjunct Mars. And its exchange, which also creates an increase in power. It is with Rahu, but Rahu is also with the Sun, which Sun and Rahu has a strange relationship because the Sun is kind of like what shines and Rahu tries to cloud. So there's maybe a struggle there in regards to the spiritual identity of which way to approach it, but it is at least under in his thought process of being done, of it being done, and he does do the best he can with the given context of his understanding. So that's why we don't see a whole lot of mess. You don't see a whole lot of drama. You don't see a whole lot of you know flare ups. The wife come out saying, "Oh Lord, Denzel had 5 women." When I mean, you don't see that. It's there as a plain statement of, "I am who I am, and I try to live the best of what I can live." So that's a D9.